Hi there, welcome to the Healing Migraines Naturally podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Leslie Caesar, and I'm a licensed naturopathic physician, former chronic migraine sufferer, and I've dedicated my life to helping other women with chronic migraines rediscover a migraine-free life. So welcome back to the podcast. I've been recording a series of podcasts this June because it's Migraine Awareness Month, and I'm trying to bring what I think should be the actual awareness to women with chronic migraines. Today I want to talk about a topic that's very, very prominent within the migraine community. It's talked about all the time, and that is triggers. And I think that we are not thinking correctly about triggers, and so I want to talk with you about this today. And so let's kick it off with one of the triggers that I used to be so sensitive to. I used to get horrible migraines if I were out in the sun for too long. And by too long, I mean like 20 minutes on a 72-degree beautiful June day in Chicagoland like it is today. So needless to say, I was very, very sensitive to sunlight and heat. But now I play tennis outside all summer without sunglasses even. You know, it reminds me of a client that I worked with named Stephanie. She's a teacher, and when we started to work together, she had to keep her classroom lights off while she was teaching. This means that she had to explain herself to every new group of students every year as to why the lights had to stay off in her class. But now her room looks like every other teacher's room. And then I have another client, Jody, who's walking around Costco without her sunglasses on anymore. And then I think about Rebecca, who doesn't even notice odors anymore, let alone get migraines from them. And she used to be her family's accidental and unwilling bloodhound. And that's not her life anymore. So again, I want to talk about this because if you've ever seen a neurologist, if you've spent any time in migraine communities online, you know the drill, right? Keep a headache diary, log your food, watch your sleep, note the weather, figure out what sets you off, and avoid it for the rest of your life. The type of awareness that's being raised about triggers in every migraine group, every foundation campaign, every purple ribbon post is this: know your triggers, track your triggers, avoid your triggers. And this is the wrong awareness, and I want to tell you why. You know, it sort of sounds logical. It feels like you're doing something. So it feels empowering to have a list, a system, a game plan, to feel like you have some control over something that has felt completely out of control. So I understand why people do it. I did it too. But here's the problem. The trigger tracking is answering the wrong question. And when you're working hard on the wrong question, you're not getting closer to the answer. You're actually getting further away. I found a study published in the journal Neurology in 2013 that looked exactly this question. So the researchers took patients who had migraine with aura and who self-reported that they knew their triggers, specifically bright light or flickering light and strenuous exercise. So they purposely picked people who thought that they weren't guessing. These people were certain. They had years of lived experience. They knew what set that aura and subsequent head pain off. So then the researchers exposed those same patients to those same triggers under controlled conditions. So photostimulation, exercise, or a combination of both, and monitored them for aura symptoms in migraine. Hi there. I want to jump in real quick and tell you about my client Beth. She was getting 15 to 20 migraines and headaches per month. And as you can imagine, this was impacting her work performance and her confidence. She also has 2 small children, and she was starting to feel like she was a horrible mom because she had nothing left for them at the end of the day. But she reached out and she booked a free consult call with me. And after I asked her about her migraines and her health history, I felt confident that I could help her. I help women uncover the root drivers of their migraines and follow a step-by-step plan to dramatically reduce the frequency by up to 90% without adding more medication or taking a bunch of supplements. So we built her personal migraine map, followed the plan, and now she will get 1 to 2 migraines per year, which she uses ibuprofen to treat if she needs to, versus up to 15 to 20 per month when we first started working together that weren't responding well to any medication. She just reached out to tell me that she got a promotion at work, she's on top of her career again, and has been able to come off all of her migraine medication. But most importantly, she's a confident mom again, and she's attending birthday parties at Jump Zone with her kids and saying yes instead of saying maybe later. I've worked with women like Beth from all over the United States who were told, this is the best we can do, but they were still willing to dig deeper. So if you're serious about changing your migraine story, go to drlesliecaesar.com/apply or tap the link in the show notes. And on our free consult, we'll map out why your migraines keep coming back and the first 3 steps you can take over the next 30 days. I do cap new client spots each month, so if the calendar is full, the doors are closed for now. But if you're done feeling helpless and ready to do the work to heal, pause this episode for 30 seconds and book that consult call now. So the triggers mostly fail to produce attacks, and particularly bright light, the one that people were most certain about, did not trigger migraine with aura in that experimental setting. So the researchers had an explanation for this. They called it post hoc ergo propter hoc. This is a Latin phrase that means after this, therefore because of this. So they had a theory that what people were calling triggers were actually early symptoms of an attack already underway. The brain in prodrome, the early phase of a migraine, becomes hypersensitive. So you notice the light, you notice the whine. And when the migraine arrives, you blame them. But according to the researchers, the migraine was already coming. The trigger just got the credit. And I think every one of you listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, because here's what every trigger tracker eventually runs into. One day, the red wine gives you a migraine. Next week, same wine, same amount. One day, the bright light wipes you out, and another day, you're outside in the full sun and you're completely fine. So after all that work, the logging, the food diaries, the interrogating the waiter about what's in the sauce, the trigger isn't even consistent, and that is infuriating because it means the rules keep changing on you. You did everything right, and then it still happened, or you broke every rule and nothing happened, right? So that inconsistency is not a mystery. It's telling you something important. The trigger was never the variable that mattered. And here's what nobody is talking about during Migraine Awareness Month: what that constant tracking actually costs you. Because the mental load is relentless, right? Should I eat this donut? Should I bring my hat with me? Is anyone going to be wearing perfume at the party? Do I need my sunglasses? Every single decision carries a migraine calculation attached. So this decision fatigue is baked into every hour of your day. You walk into a restaurant and you're already interrogating the waiter. You know, what's in the sauce? What's in the marinade? Meal hasn't even started and you're totally exhausted. I mean, maybe even embarrassed. Maybe a little resentful that this is your life right now. And when we cannot break bread with our kin without going through all of this hassle, it's no joke. The anxiety that trigger tracking generates may be doing more damage than the donut ever would. A nervous system that's running that calculation all day, every day, is a nervous system under constant stress. You're working so hard, and the work itself is part of what's keeping you stuck. So what's actually going on? If the trigger isn't the cause, what is? So I want you to imagine a compass needle. So when you are in a state of health, when your body has the nutrients that it needs, when it can clear metabolic waste material, and it has enough resiliency and vitality to bounce back from the demands of daily life, that needle is pointing north. Okay, so that's homeostasis. That's a state of health. That's a state of balance. That is the body doing exactly what it was designed to do. And when our body is in a state of health or homeostasis, it doesn't generate symptoms. So stressors are constantly pushing that needle down towards west. So physical stressors like barometric pressure changes, travel, disrupted sleep, illnesses, colds and flus, more serious things like bronchitis or pneumonia. Mental and emotional stressors, the things that we call stress, conflict, anxiety, grief, the chronic low-grade worry that comes from tracking every meal in every environment. It pushes the needle down towards west. So when the needle drops down far enough, it enters what I call the symptom zone. And when it's in the symptom zone, the body generates symptoms. Okay, so which symptoms? That's where your genetics come in, your predisposition. You and I are prone to migraines. You might have a very clear genetic component to it. I certainly do on both sides of my family. There's a very, very clear picture of migraines and headaches. Okay, so obviously we see that things run in families, and so there's a genetic component to what people are prone to as far as symptoms or health concerns or diseases, right? So you and I, we're prone to migraines. Someone else is prone to heartburn. Someone else is prone to high blood pressure or diabetes that they won't even know about for years because those conditions, they don't hurt. So here's the thing. The trigger didn't create the symptom zone, okay? The trigger just pushed the needle, and the needle was already close to the edge. So for those of us that are prone to migraines, I don't call it the symptom zone, I call it the migraine zone, okay? So our needle is continuously getting pushed down by stressors. It's our own resiliency and vitality that pushes the needle back up and keeps us in a state of health, keeps us in the green zone. Again, when we're in the green zone, our body isn't generating symptoms. But when the needle falls down into that symptom zone, and again, for you and me, we have a migraine zone. We have other symptoms that we're prone to too. So like think of this dial. There's little symptom zones lining that dial. And I like to think sort of at the northwest side of the dial is our migraine zone. But before the needle even gets into our migraine zone, we're going to have other symptoms that are going to be expressed. So when that storm came through and you got a migraine afterwards, barometric pressure changes, wind. A lot of people will get a migraine if it's too windy outside, right? This is a very real phenomenon. If that's you, you're not alone. The wind, the weather, the barometric pressure changes. Those are physical stressors on our body, and they're going to push our needle down. So on a day where it gets real windy and the pressures are changing, a storm is coming through, if your needle is north and you have good resiliency and vitality, that weather system is going to push your needle down, but you're going to have enough resiliency and vitality to weather the weather, okay? And so then you're not going to experience a migraine because of that. But on the day that front comes through, if your needle is already right above your migraine zone, because again, we're under constant stress. Our body is being continuously bombarded by stressors, physical stressors, photons of light, we're bombarded by sensory impressions. Those are stressors. We also have things that we call stress, right? So you can't get away from stress. It's inherent. So those are pushing our needle down. So on the day that a storm comes through, if your needle is already hovering right over your migraine zone and poop, you've got enough of an additional physical stress from the environment to push that needle down into your migraine zone, and you don't have enough resiliency and vitality to push the needle back up, then you're going to get a migraine. On the day that the weather gave you a migraine, your resiliency and vitality was already low that day because the needle was hovering right there. The weather was sort of like the straw on the camel's back, the final cut of 10,000 cuts. On another day, right, where you have more resiliency and vitality, that same front comes through and it's going to push your needle down, but it's going to pop back up again. The same trigger, same sensitivity to weather, completely different outcome because the trigger was never the variable that actually mattered. So the real question was never what pushed the needle down. Like I say, stressors are everywhere. They're unavoidable. You cannot build a life that is free of stressors. And, believe me, we try, right? As migraine sufferers, we try very hard to build a life without any stressors, but you can't do that. Like I always say, you can't bubble wrap yourself to prevent a migraine. So the real question is, why didn't your needle bounce back to north, right? So, think about little kids, right? Like a little kid can sleep on the floor, they can eat whatever's in front of them at any time, they can miss a meal, they can stay up too late, they can run around in the heat, and they bounce back like nothing happened. That's their high resiliency and vitality. The needle gets pushed down and then it springs right back up. So vitality doesn't just drain on a schedule just inevitably because we age. So it's not about getting older. I mean, one day we are going to die and we won't have any vitality. But what happens to us over time is that people inadvertently drain their vitality through habits and patterns that don't support health, and they often don't even know that they're doing it. So for migraine sufferers, the top three are perfectionism, people-pleasing, and fixing. Running those patterns every day is exhausting. And here's what makes it harder, right? We're not choosing to do this. There's something underneath driving it, an unconscious pull that keeps the perfectionist perfecting, keeps the fixer fixing, even when they're depleted and even when they desperately want to stop. They're being drained by forces they haven't fully seen yet. And so the needle stays down, not because of age, not because of bad luck, not because of our genetics, because the vitality that would push it back up keeps getting spent before it can accumulate. So this is what resiliency and vitality actually mean. Not energy, not physical fitness, not motivation, not positive thinking. It's the body's physical capacity to return that compass needle to north. And restoring that capacity is really the most critical part of healing. Without it, you're going to have to keep living in bubble wrap, limiting every stressor, managing every variable, avoiding every so-called trigger, just to stay out of your migraine zone. And that's not a life. That's containment. This is the actual investigation, and none of it shows up on a trigger log. So you've unfortunately been told to solve for the wrong problem. And again, this is not your fault. Everyone told you to do this. Your neurologist, the migraine apps, the Awareness Month campaigns, all of it pointed you at the triggers. So of course, that's what you looked at. Hi there. I want to jump in real quick and tell you about my client, Beth. She was getting 15 to 20 migraines and headaches per month. And as you can imagine, this was impacting her work performance and her confidence. She also has 2 small children, and she was starting to feel like she was a horrible mom because she had nothing left for them at the end of the day. But she reached out and she booked a free consult call with me, and after I asked her about her migraines and her health history, I felt confident that I could help her. I help women uncover the root drivers of their migraines and follow a step-by-step plan to dramatically reduce the frequency by up to 90% without adding more medication or taking a bunch of supplements. So we built her personal migraine map, followed the plan, and now she will get 1 to 2 migraines per year, which she uses ibuprofen to treat if she needs to, versus up to 15 to 20 per month when we first started working together that weren't responding well to any medication. She just reached out to tell me that she got a promotion at work, she's on top of her career again, and has been able to come off all of her migraine medication. But most importantly, she's a confident mom again, and she's attending birthday parties at Jump Zone with her kids and saying yes instead of saying maybe later. I've worked with women like Beth from all over the United States who were told, this is the best we can do, but they were still willing to dig deeper. So if you're serious about changing your migraine story, go to drlesliecaesar.com/apply or tap the link in the show notes. And on our free consult, we'll map out why your migraines keep coming back and the first 3 steps you can take over the next 30 days. I do cap new client spots each month, so if the calendar is full, the doors are closed for now. But if you're done feeling helpless and ready to do the work to heal, pause this episode for 30 seconds and book that consult call now. But trigger avoidance is symptom management at its best. At its worst, it's a story that keeps you locked inside of the condition. The actual investigation is your environments, and I want to be specific about what I mean. The physical environment really comes down to 2 fundamental questions. Does your body have the nutrients that it needs to run its biochemistry? And is your biochemistry bogged down with a bunch of trash, what I call metabolic waste material, a toxin load that accumulates and clogs the system and slows everything down? At the fundamentals, that's what your body needs. I call these the first 2 principles. So that's it. Nutrients in, waste material out. When that equation is off, the needle stays No amount of trigger avoidance fixes a nutritional deficiency, and no migraine app addresses toxin load. The mental and emotional environment is harder to talk about, and it's one that almost nobody in the migraine world addresses. So I want you to think about what it is like to lie awake at 3 a.m. trying to shut your brain off, trying to let go of the to-do list, replaying the conversation you had at work, asking yourself whether you said the right thing in the meeting, beating yourself up, running it back again, coming up with another thing. Oh, I wish I had said that. Trying to force yourselves to stop thinking, unable to stop thinking. It's not just a sleep problem. That is a pattern. And the pattern, the perfectionism or the people-pleasing, the fixing, the managing everybody else's feelings, holding everything together so that nothing falls apart, that's a vitality drain every day on a system that's already struggling to keep the needle up. Compare that to sleeping through the night, not waking up at all. That's not a small thing. That's what it looks like when the mental and emotional environment starts to change. And, there's no pill for this. There's not a pharmaceutical solution. There isn't a natural supplement solution. No medicinal herbs are going to address this or touch this. Deep breathing and meditation might take the edge off, but they're a band-aid on a pattern that goes much deeper. So those patterns, the fixing, the hypervigilance, the self-censoring, they don't appear from nowhere. They get laid down for a reason. Something in your history made those patterns logical, even necessary. Maybe you grew up in an environment where reading the room carefully was how you stayed safe, or anticipating everybody else's needs was how you kept the peace, where being the one who held it together, that's just what you did. And now you're applying that same skill to your migraines, watching for every signal, tracking, anticipating, trying to prevent, white-knuckling your way through. The real work, the work that actually moves the needle, is understanding how those patterns got laid down and building new ones. This is not a supplement protocol. This is not a fancy, special new lab test. It's a different kind of healing entirely. No migraine app will ever get you there. So, like I say, this is Migraine Awareness Month, 2026. I did an episode a few years ago. It's episode 39 called Why I Don't Wear the Purple Ribbon. If you haven't heard it, go back and listen. The awareness being raised by the foundations, the ribbon campaigns, the migraine merch, the walks, it's built on a worldview that says migraines are chronic, genetic, you have a migraine brain, and they're permanent. And the best that you can hope for is to manage them, to cope, to be a migraine warrior. I know that worldview to be false. I know it from my own migraines, and I know it from working with hundreds of women who are no longer getting migraines. So here's the awareness that I want to raise. Your body has an inherent, miraculous ability to restore itself. Migraines are not a life sentence. The triggers are not the problem. It's the state of health underneath that is causing this, and that state of health can change. We can improve our health. And I don't mean physical fitness. I mean actually getting that needle pointing north again. Stephanie's classroom has the lights on. Jody's in Costco. Rebecca is no longer the bloodhound, and I'm playing tennis outside in the summer without sunglasses. So this is what we work on, and this is what this podcast is for. So if you're ready to stop solving the wrong problem and start asking the right questions, come find me. Book a free consultation call with me. The link is in the description. And we'll spend about 30 minutes talking about your migraines, any other health concerns that you have, and we'll put together a game plan to get you feeling better. It's going to be the best 30 minutes you've spent on your migraines and your health in a long time. So I look forward to talking with you, and I look forward to creating another episode for you on the podcast. If you're enjoying the content here, please share with another migraine sufferer, and please like and subscribe. It really does help us with the algorithms to get the word out. So I will talk to you soon.